This is Louis, and this is going to be a standardized advertisement that I use likely for the rest of the month because I have a lot of content that I need to get through, and this simplifies editing to a degree that I need. So after this video, why don't you head on over to Play Asia and take a look around, see if there's any games that catch your fancy or any other bullshit that you might want. Head on over and check it out. Usually people do find something and they do purchase it, and I make some fucking money off that commission. If you're more of a specialist in the content that you enjoy, head on over to J-List and check out, the food, check out the fetishist bullshit, check out the H-games and the Aero gay, check it all on out over at J-List. And man, I am like a fucking used car salesman as it relates to pussy, because every fucking time I mention J-List, I make a sale, baby. I am over here making fat commissions off of that plastic pussy, baby. So head on over to J-List, check it out. You might find nothing, you might find something. And if you find something, I'm gonna be making that commission, baby. And if you're sitting there saying to yourself that you don't need fuck all, you don't need nothing, why don't you head on over to Patreon and don't pay attention to any politics, just support me. Anytime someone says, hey, what about this thing that happened? Don't listen to what they're saying. Just support me on Patreon. Patreon didn't do nothing. Yes, they're run by fucking half-screw progressive lunatic morons. They don't know what they're doing. That's true. However, for now, why don't you support me there? Because I'm waiting with bated breath for some kind of alternative that isn't fringe as shit, that can be a non-controversial alternative to Patreon, but for now, we just got Patreon. Thanks for listening, thanks for potentially supporting me, and if you already are, thank you for that, and be sure to enjoy this video. Links are in the description as they always are. So this is Louis, and I just thought I would record this spur-of-the-moment commentary, even though I'd have to really fit it in to get it up on my channel. For right now, I just thought I would talk about a news story that I think is going to develop. This is one of my fucking predictions. And maybe it doesn't come true. Maybe things, quiet down again. But I think that we have reached a point where EA, as a company, has crossed a particular line. Now, this is not a line that I drew. This is not a line that I think could have been predicted, really, because of multiple reasons, but one of the things that I'll say right up front is, to EA's credit and to the credit of their shareholders, they realize that there is potentially millions of people, just in the United States, Canada, UK, there are millions of people that are hardcore gamers, and I say hardcore gamers not in that they are like me where they talk about gaming on YouTube or fucking whatever, but they consistently buy games. These are people that spend hundreds of dollars every single fucking year consistently on games. And that's not abnormal. The point that I'm making here is that there are people that do that, and that are, the best way I could describe it, as apathetic consumers. They will buy a game for $60, play it for 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours, if it's even that long, and then never play it again. And they will do that fucking 12 times a year, maybe even more. These are people that just buy games on a whim, an impulse buy, and they buy it uncritically, they play it uncritically, they stop playing it uncritically, they never put 1 second more thought into that purchase than after they buy it. And after they're finished playing it, they never consider at all whether it was worth the price or not, and they never take a second of time to even connect it to developers or fucking publishers. I mean, these are people that bought Mass Effect 1, 2, 3, and Andromeda and have absolutely fucking nothing to say about any of them. They have absolutely nothing to say. These are people that are mindless consumers. And they exist in the millions. That is something that EA has relied on as a company, because EA as a company has been notorious, infamous at this point, for being a terrible company. They are a terrible publisher. As a company, they exist solely to suck the dick of their investors, and they do so, and they worsen their games because of that, and to such an extent that they listen to their shareholders, that they introduce aspects of the games simply to appease them. there have been many stories at this point, I'm not going to go over them, of the multiplayer elements of games that have been added to appease shareholders, the online-only elements of games to appease shareholders. Like, there's numerous aspects of games that they've introduced, including microtransactions and all the rest, that is done to appease shareholders. Shareholders have it in their minds, or the companies themselves come up with these ideas, and they, show the shareholders this, and they say, this is how we're going to make all this money. Shareholders say, yes, go do it. Introduce it in every game, and the company does that. They pressure developers, and in part, if they're owned by EA, force them to introduce these certain aspects to their games in order to generate more income. Now, that's fine. That's capitalism. But the issue is with EA is that they also release shitty games. And they have so for a long time. And I'm not going to get into, defending the couple in the last few years that I'd be willing to defend. But outside of those couple, there are no games being released by EA that are worth playing. Absolutely zero. One of the most overrated fucking developers in the Western industry is fucking DICE. I can't begin to tell you how many times I've bought a fucking DICE game from a friend's recommendation, played it for a couple hours, and just been like, wow, that was a waste of my fucking money. How many fucking games I've bought from that one company. And I've never thought that they were a quality developer. And I'm sure there's going to be someone typing right now saying I'm wrong. Well, it doesn't really matter. Because the way EA is going, and that's the spoiler for this video, is that the way EA is going, they might not even exist. The line that they crossed with Star Wars Battlefront II is one where I don't think that they're ever going to be able to make up for that. And it's not because I gave a shit about Star Wars Battlefront 2. I played the fucking beta. It's garbage. Surprise! The first game was a piece of shit. The second game's a piece of shit too. It's a fucking hollowed out cash-in. Just relying on the fact that fucking DICE just churns out vanilla fucking shooters and they put a fucking Star Wars skin on it. That's literally that game. It is an indefensible purchase. It is a shovelware sequel on a game that I didn't even buy because it was so fucking bad. But people bought it. And it's, again, mindless consumption. And it's, what am I supposed to say? Good for EA. You're making money. But they crossed the line. And they crossed the line, and they crossed it in a way so badly that this may actually be a turning point for them where they may actually doom their fucking company. Because what happens with constant fucking bad feedback and constant fucking press attention is you draw heat. This is what happens in the free market when you as a company aren't able to manage your PR. This is what happens. When you go on Reddit and you say some typical corporate speak bullshit and you get 500,000 negative downvotes. So we're talking potentially millions of people saw this fucking post. And 500,000 thought it was bad enough so that they thumbed it down. That story, the story around this game that you made, getting this much fucking negative attention, goes fucking global. You get worldwide press attention about this fact. You're releasing some shitty fucking sequel to a shit franchise at this point. Everyone's going to go crazy. Oh, you're talking about the game from fucking eons ago. No, I'm not. Okay? Can we keep it to fucking 2010 and afterwards, please? Everyone with their fucking nostalgia blinders. Perhaps that's why people keep buying EA games mindlessly. Oh, Star Wars Battlefront 2 from fucking forever ago. That was so great, Louis. It's like, well, that's great. Tell it to the fucking shareholders of the company when the fucking stock tanks and the company has to start selling off fucking studios and then the whole thing goes tits up. Tell that to me then. Tell it to the fucking shareholders pulling out of the company. They just had another day on the stock market where their fucking stock tanked. And it's because they crossed the line. They went too far. They got too much attention. And now what's happening is even worse for the industry. For them, I don't fucking care. What happens to them, I don't fucking care. I want to make that point clear. Because if EA was gone tomorrow, I wouldn't lose a second of fucking sleep over it. I really don't care at this point. Because they can't produce anything decent anymore. And they're unwilling in any way to just give any ground to consumers that they aren't pressured into because they know it's going to severely damage their company if they don't do it. So the whole thing about them getting rid of the microtransactions in Star Wars Battlefront II the day before the game came out, that's because of fucking Disney. Disney called down to EA, and Disney's a much larger corporation. And that, again, EA is riding off of this license. Okay, that's what this is. EA is making money off of this license. It's not just about Disney. Disney sees this as EA fucking up their brand and fucking up the Star Wars brand. They call down and they say, hey guys, guess what? You're also damaging our brand in the process. You're damaging the Disney brand. You're damaging the Star Wars brand, which we own. So you're damaging us. You're damaging our shares. You're damaging our prospects of future profits. You're damaging us. So knock it the fuck off. And I have no idea what they probably threatened to do if EA didn't stop, but they did threaten EA. They did say, you better fucking stop. And you don't want this to happen as a company like EA who's going to ride on these licenses. Okay, this is not Telltale. This is a company that needs massively successful games in order to survive, because EA is a massive fucking company. It is a massive company with exorbitant costs. I mean, some of these games cost just tens and tens and tens, hundreds in some cases, of millions of dollars. So they need these games to be successful. So to have Disney come down on you and say, hey, listen, and I'm sure they said something to some extent, like maybe we'll shop around with our licenses in the fucking future. In my opinion, everything that's happening with EA right now is because of that. It's because of Disney's pressure. It's not because of, oh, this is a win for gamers, because they've never given a shit about what gamers think, and they never will, because they know there's enough mindless fucking people that are going to buy their games no matter what, that it doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter what gamers think in this case. But the reason why I'm doing this commentary is not to just rant to you about fucking EA or Star Wars or anything else. It is to showcase to people what happens when you draw too much heat. This is how people get away with things in the free market or in crime, is you don't draw the attention of authorities. You don't draw the attention of empty fucking politicians looking for something to ban. You don't draw their attention. And that's what EA has failed to do, because they just had a news story, negative news story about their company and their games and their products and everything go global. And so now what has happened is that there are now cases being opened, there are now lawsuits taking place, there are now things happening that may wind up bursting the whole bubble here in the Western industry. Because when you draw the eye of the government, you have to realize that this is already common sense in political circles. Yeah, obviously we need to regulate games. They're fucking resulting in mass shootings. That's just common knowledge or common sentiment for people in those political circles. The only people that defend video games are gamers. And guess what? Because of companies like EA, now you're losing them too. You know, this is the whole thing. You need gamers to back you. You need the consumers to join rank with you and defend the industry. But the problem is now that, and this is the line that's been crossed really, you've gone so far and you're so unpopular now, and there's so many people condemning you outside of journos and dick suckers and the rest. You know, outside of those people, you have no one defending you anymore. You have no one defending you. And so now when you have the government and politicians who are looking for something to ban, if you have them now looking at you and they have an active case for how they can regulate you, what you're doing is you're setting yourself up to fail. You're setting yourself up to be very heavily restricted and regulated and governed by the government, which you can't directly control. You know, the thing is that the politicians in the political class don't like you. Again, it's only gamers that like you. It's only a very niche group of people that like you. And when you don't even have them, you're getting fucking millions of people looking at a post, mocking you because they can't stand you. They hate your game. They hate your practices. They hate you as a company. And now you're getting the attention of journalists and politicians and governments abroad and domestically. You are setting yourself up for failure, and failure in such a way that you will see the collapse of entities such as the ESRB, and then replaced by government regulators. This is what happens when you go too far. This is what happens when you are the frog in a pot of boiling water, turning up the fucking temperature on the stove. This is your fucking fault. This is your fault. This is the fault of every company that has allowed these ridiculous things to continue on for years without any kind of fucking minimum standard being set, any kind of fucking pushback, any kind of fucking sense from anyone from these companies to say that things are progressing too far, that people need to set a standard and not do this, and you actively have the ESRB come in and actually say something about this. Do something. But they don't do it, and it is because the ESRB, as an entity, the ESA, is nothing more than a front group for a collection of the largest and worst gaming corporations, gaming industry corporations in the market, the Western market. They are the worst offenders for all of these things, for releasing shitty games that are not ready to be released upon release, that include all kinds of bad transactions and bad fucking consumer practices and everything else. Everything else, churning out the most vanilla shit possible and just cramming it full of garbage that your shareholders want you to include. Those companies are the ones that fund the ESA, and through them the ESRB, that regulates the biggest market in the world, to my knowledge, which is the United States. The ESA and the ESRB is set up to constrain the number of games that are allowed on the market. They want to constrain how many games are on the PlayStation Store, on the Microsoft Store, on the Xbox, and on Steam. Although Steam seems to be one of the few markets that's actively pushing back against the ESA and a lot of their shit, although not to the degree that I wish they would. But they seem to be less willing to go along with constraining the market, because Steam wants to be able to sell as many games as they possibly can so they can continue to pretty much own the PC market. That's Steam's bias in this. They want to control the PC market. And they do that not by constraining access to games, but by allowing as many games on the platform as possible. That's how Steam does well. It's how Valve as a company does well. So they have the natural incentive to not go along with the ESRB and to not go along with these other companies in this cartel trying to restrict access to the market. But that is what the ESRB is for. The ESRB is there to charge indie developers exorbitant fees and then deny them for their approval to get a rating. They either want them to not have a rating so they can keep them out of the market, or they just want them to pay exorbitant fees and to censor their games. That way they can be brought onto the PlayStation Store and the Microsoft Store and all the rest, so that they toe the line along with the rest of the big boys. It's been said forever that a lot of the fringe games, the indie games, the school shooters or the whatever, those kind of like edgy shooter games, the porn games such as hentai games or visual novels, eroge games, those have been basically said to be the ones that are going to force regulation onto the market, and I've always known that to be bullshit. It doesn't matter whether it's some very awful rape loli game. That isn't going to be what regulates gaming through the government. It's going to be gaming, including gambling into their games, and the government going, hey guys, guess what? That's our territory. We regulate gambling. You don't. And so when they push it too far, the government's going to step in. They're just going to say, okay, that's enough of this ESRB shit. We're now regulating the gaming industry. And that's not the line that's been crossed. It's not the companies and the shareholders making stupid decisions. It's the fact that these companies and their stupid decisions have directly resulted in the consumers, who they need to defend them, those consumers now being lost. Because, for example, if someone were to ask me, in all honesty, we're talking about the government regulating the gaming industry. What do you think of the ESRB? And the appeal would be that I should defend it. I should defend the ESRB because it's private. And my answer is going to be, well, the ESRB is a front group for the largest gaming corporations. They're completely corrupt. They do nothing outside of exclude certain games from the market for no other reason than to restrain competition at the direct benefit of the major donors to the ESRB, which is all the major gaming corporations in America. That's why the ESRB exists. That's what it does in practice. That's what it's doing now. That is what it will forever do, unless it is completely restructured or a new agency replaces it. And a politician is going to take that clip by me and say, here's a hardcore gamer that's been gaming his entire life who says the ESRB is a completely corrupt fucking corporation or entity that exists as merely a proxy or a front group for all these major corporations that are now shoveling gambling into these games that are turning your kids into addicts or whatever they're going to come up with. They're going to play that snippet, and they're going to have enough people go, oh man, I don't know, and then they're going to lose a fucking couple sessions in Congress, and then they're going to be regulated. And it's not going to be my fucking fault, because I'm not here to lie. I'm not here to defend a fucking series of companies that are dog shit, that have been screwing me and screwing you out of every fucking penny for decades at this point. Okay, I've had enough. I've had enough of the goddamn industry. I've had enough of the Western market altogether. I've had enough of all of these garbage games that they continue to shovel out, that people mindlessly buy and justify other sequels. They have the worst consumer practices in the fucking world as it relates to this medium. The worst in the world, and yet people still buy their fucking games. And now they finally crossed the line with the fans, and they're drawing the eye of government. This is their fucking fault, and I am not here to fucking defend them. That is not my role in this world anymore, to defend these fucking worthless companies, their bad consumer practices, and their stupid decisions. I'm not a shareholder in EA. It could collapse tomorrow, and I could give a shit less. I don't care. Nothing they're going to produce in the next 10 years is going to be worth my money, based on every fucking game that's been coming out. There may not even be a Sims 5 to even buy because of the fact that they closed Maxis. So, even there, with the one game that I can think of I would maybe buy, it doesn't even look like it's going to get a sequel. Because they fucked up the last one so badly that they've lost like a serious portion of consumers, of fans. So even there, it's like I can't even justify it. One of the things that people have to realize at some point is that this is not about some fucking fantasy of a collapse of the industry. That's never going to fucking happen. But what is currently going on is an industry in our quadrant of the world, the Western industry, the American industry, it is on a trajectory where it is going to make every game, every genre, a lot like the music genre. You know, you remember playing Guitar Hero and Rock Band and all that shit. Every genre is eventually going to be that genre, where it has been run into the ground over and over and over again. And the games that come out are all sequels, and none of them are really better than the last. And eventually people are just going to stop buying them. Eventually people are just going to stop buying those games. You see it with FIFA. You see it with Madden. You see it with every fucking dog shit shooter DICE puts out. You see it with Call of Duty. You see it with Assassin's Creed. You see it in every single motherfucking major fucking franchise. Every single fucking one, with the exception of probably what Rockstar's working on. They appear to be one of the only fucking Western developers that are just making sequels that are selling very well. Very, very, very fucking well. They seem to be one of the fucking few. BioShock, it happened to fucking BioShock, man. A lot of people didn't like Infinite. I liked it. But even with BioShock, 3 fucking games. 3 fucking games and it's over. So, you can't get away with sequels forever. You can't do it. Especially when you're releasing shit. And in my opinion, there is going to be some serious changes in the next 10 years, I'll say. The next 10 years with the Western market. Because I think they have run their course, and they are incapable of suiting their shareholders and not drawing the ire of gamers, and also not drawing the attention of politicians looking, just begging for a fucking reason to regulate them. And they're too stupid to realize it. They're too fucking stupid to realize that that could happen in a fucking second. In a fucking second. They're too stupid to realize it. But again, it's not up to me. It's not up to me. I can't do anything about that, EA. Can't do anything about that. Whether I'm talking, someone listening to this is just either disagreeing with me, or is, a dick rider for one of these companies or developers or a publisher. But you got nothing on me. It's all their fault. It's all their fault for what's happening. They have no one to blame but themselves in the end. And I do think there's going to be changes because of this. I'm not going to say that one case in particular, or one politician, or whatever, one lawsuit, is going to be the fucking thing that changes the whole game. But I do think that we are going to see some major changes in the next 10 years. And it is going to be for the following reasons. 1, too many fucking sequels, not enough sales. 2, consumer practices when you go too fucking far. 3, drawing too much attention from fucking regulators and people just looking for a reason, an excuse to fucking regulate the industry. Just looking for a fucking reason. And those are the people they're drawing the attention of. And listening to investors. Listening to investors on fucking everything. Not focusing on making a product that's going to make them a lot of fucking money and keep their good brand, but rather make a series of bad decisions that suit the shareholders and the investors, but really, really, really fucking piss off gamers. How many fucking times have we seen this in recent years? You have Bethesda with fucking Skyrim, with Fallout 4, in numerous ways, with fucking Rockstar and Grand Theft Auto 5 in numerous ways. Just every fucking company at this point is doing things, changing their games, making alterations to games, trying to include terrible consumer practices for the ends of getting more money in the hands of fucking shareholders. That's why they're doing it. And in the end, if you have no one there to fucking defend you, no one but well-paid lawyers, when it comes to the fucking congressional hearings for why you should be regulated, if you got no one fucking backing you but high-priced lawyers, and basically somebody sticks a microphone in my fucking face and says to me, what do you think about the ESRB? What do you think about EA? What do you think about all these corporations? Yeah, they're all corrupt, they're all worthless. They probably are trying to get your kids addicted to gambling. It's more money for the shareholders. Legalize gambling that way. A lot of fucking disposable income for young adults. They're probably fucking doing it. They probably are trying to get your kids fucking gambling. It's like, yeah, you think that shit's bad with fucking EA and this loot box bullshit? Why don't you go take a look at fucking Counter-Strike Global Offensive, or Go, or whatever the fuck the name is. Why don't you go look at the shit going on there on Steam? The gambling websites that existed for all the loot box openings and all that bullshit. Gambling on what the outcome would be and all that shit that they closed down eventually. Why don't you go take a look at that shit? Want to talk about gambling? So, and the thing is, again, like, I'm not the one saying this, I'm not the one calling for this, I'm not the one doing anything. It's the fact that this shit shouldn't be happening. And you don't hear the fucking ESRB, you don't hear fucking anyone saying that it shouldn't. Nobody. No one gives a shit. And guess what? Push it long enough. See where that end goes. Have some fucking dumpy fucking white woman mother sitting in fucking Washington, D.C. crying her eyes out to Congress saying how her son spent $1,500 and killed himself because he was playing Counter-Strike or Overwatch or fucking whatever. And guess what? Guess what? Then you're getting to regulation. Then all that bullshit you did is going to get your entire industry fucking regulated in the United States. And you're not going to have anyone fucking defending you. That's the trajectory that you're currently on. And the thing is, I don't think they're going to wise up. I don't think they're going to realize what they're doing. I don't think they're going to really give a shit. I think they're going to say short-term games with the fucking, giving dividends to the shareholders and us getting bonuses. Short-term there. Long-term, the company might be fucked. But hey, man, I'll get my golden parachute. I'll bounce. You know, who cares? There's not going to be a crash. Anyone that says that's a fucking moron. But there are going to be some changes in the next 10 years. Unless some drastic changes happen to come about from these corporations themselves, but I don't see that happening. So look for it. Thanks for listening.